Hello and welcome to Within the Shadows, our podcast of cryptids, paranormal happenings, and random spooky stuff. I'm Ikaika, the resident scientific skeptic, and to my right or your left is...
I'm Scarlet Raven, and I am a psychic medium and spooky nut.
If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, and follow us on Anchor and Spotify so you don't miss a single episode. In this episode, we'll be discussing the lore of Skinwalkers.
Ooh.
Right? Now, first we want to say, before we get started, we come with complete respect for all indigenous tribes of the U.S. and their culture and beliefs. As we go through this podcast, you'll hear some interesting facts, and we want to state that these are facts. They're not to draw out anything negative of indigenous tribes in the U.S., but to bring light to them more so, and for people to understand.
So, Skinwalkers, the big scary boogeyman of the southwest region of the United States. Many stories, TV shows, and movies have grown around this mysterious image of a dark entity cloaked in a wolf or coyote skin, roaming the plains and hills of a particularly vast space that many indigenous tribes have called home for hundreds of years.
Right, so for most non-Navajo people, anytime the word skinwalker is mentioned, you have this general idea of what a skinwalker is supposed to be, okay? Somebody that is, for lack of a better term, dressed up as a wolf or a coyote, skulking around, being creepy, but there's definitely more than that. What most people are unaware of, that the skinwalker or Yi Naloshi is only one of several types of skinwalkers in the Navajo culture, but we are going to mainly focus on this type of skinwalker because this is the most information that we could find to present to everyone. Skinwalkers have been the focal point of fear for most non-Navajo people for many years, but the origins of the skinwalker begins beyond a person within the tribal community.
So, the Navajo believe that there are places where the powers of both good and evil are present. Now, these areas may be as unassuming as a patch of land or a valley or cave in the landscape of these indigenous tribes, but they do hold a great meaning and power for them.
I completely agree. Being born and raised in Hawaii and being of Hawaiian descent, there's a lot of places that are literally unmarked by anything but are known within the Hawaiian culture and Hawaiian religion to be very special. Case in point, one of the easiest ones to describe is a place on Oahu called Kaena Point. It's as unassuming as just a rocky shoreline, but in Hawaiian culture, this is known as a jump-off point for spirits of people that have passed. And that jump-off point, has a good or bad yes or no connotation to it. The spirits will jump off into the ocean, kind of leading them to heaven as a positive place. And if the spirits were bad, or the people were bad, those spirits, are relegated to the hills and caves along that coastline. Not the best area that you want to hang out in. I'm sure the views are great, but it is an area of negative connotation. It's listed as a place, and now it's actually kind of like an off-road park for four-wheel drive vehicles and dirt bikes and such. But you wouldn't know that unless you are familiar with Hawaiian culture.
Now, my question, and this could be a whole nother episode talking about Kaena Point,
Mm-hmm.
but it's sacred land, but it's being used as off-road and so forth. Now, is that okay? Is that upsetting to energy's spirit? Or is it acceptable because obviously there's locals that know this and they still go there and do it?
Yeah, I personally would say that it's not the best thing. It's like walking over someone's grave in a cemetery. Now, these places of power, if you will, or these special areas to indigenous tribes, their medicine men and women, also known as shamans, utilize these places and their powers to heal and aid members of their community. That can include fruits or trees or plants or flowers in that area, maybe even, I don't want to say dirt, but earth from an area. There's a lot of sedimentary lines everywhere, and these tribes and cultures might believe that, the earth or whatever from this particular area is special. And, especially when you're talking about, botanics and things like that used in many, many cultures across the world as medicine, food, used in rituals and things like that.
Yeah, and to kind of go on the witchy psychic tip, you've got ley lines.
Mm-hmm.
You've got vortexes, which we live in one.
We do live in Florida, so.
Well, no, seriously, vortex. We told you guys about that.
Right.
And also, the energy from those elements starts to collect. The energy, when you go to those types of places, a lot of people will say, oh, it feels a little different. It feels weird. Well, that's because the energy is really ramped up. And so you've got all of these elements that are charged with so much energy from rituals, or, even going out and collecting, say, these flowers,
Mm-hmm.
or herbs, and thanking the universe, thanking the ground, thanking the air for everything it's done. That's putting energy into that. So there's a lot of things happening, not just in general that these places and these things mean a lot, but that energy is being given back and forth between the people and the environment. Navajo witches, including skinwalkers, represent the antithesis of Navajo cultural values as they harness the power of these areas and seek to direct the spiritual forces to cause harm or misfortune to others, performing twisted ceremonies and manipulating magic.
Yeah, so they basically kind of exploit these areas for, negative outcomes. They have these places of power, these centered spiritual areas, and then say there is some type of botanical there, like, flowers or herbs or wood even. And then also on top of that, the ley lines and vortexes, give them power. And fortunately for skinwalkers, it's usually a negative outcome.
Yes, because skinwalkers seem to take it the other direction when they really don't need to.
Unfortunately. Now, traditional Navajo healers will learn about both good and evil magic of their environment, which most can handle the responsibility, but some people can become corrupt and choose to become witches.
I mean, you find that is a possibility with any belief system.
Mm-hmm.
I practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I practice responsibly. I would never do anything that was dangerous or
Malevolent.
yeah, because you have the threefold law. It comes back to you threefold. Yeah, all the energy and everything, just like I spoke about before, they're putting the energy out. All the energy you put out, it's going to come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you really need to be conscious of that. And there's always going to be the people that push the envelope or just straight up go to the bad side.
Right. I think the old adage of with great power comes great responsibility. I hate to use this example, but it's kind of like, in Star Wars, the light, Jedi and the dark side. the good side and the bad side. The good side is always usually pretty chill and, benevolent and unassuming.
And
where
accountable.
Accountable, very good, yes. But on the flip side of it, the dark side is very appealing to, at face value because of the power and the authority almost, represented by these characters. I mean, it's cheesy, it's sci-fi, but it's honestly true. And these things permeate, from ancient cultures into modern society.
Yeah, and it's not really cheesy at all because these stories have built not just our childhood, but how many other people's. These are the stories we grew up on learning, but the difference between right and wrong.
Exactly.
And with the dark side, you have that instant gratification, and that's what you're finding with a lot of these that tend to go to the dark side, we'll say that, is they want that instant gratification.
Yes. Hopefully we won't be get sued by Disney for saying that on a podcast. So,
whoopsies. The Navajo Nation area encompasses many tribes that also include the Pueblo people, Apache, Hopi, and Ute, and other groups that reside in the Four Corners area in the southwest region of the United States. Mainly northeast Arizona, northwest New Mexico, and the southeast corner of Utah. Now, this is a vast and somewhat desolate area of the world characterized by arid deserts, alpine forests atop high plateaus, mesas, and mountains contrasted by low rolling plains and deep canyons. Time, wind, water, and some volcanic activity has created a world within the world for the local tribes to live and grow their community as well as their spiritual beliefs, untainted by outside influences.
Now, fortunately, I've had the chance to experience this area personally, not as much as I'd like to, depending on the heat, but the Navajo Nation's area of the world around the Four Corners is a drastic and dramatically beautiful land. But you can see that the desolation definitely keeps outsiders from coming in. So fortunately, the tribes out there can do their thing, can, grow their culture and, create their culture and grow it and, almost keep it to themselves somewhat without being influenced by anyone.
And it gives them some space to just be who they are at the core.
Now, with the tribes living in this isolated area, the negative sentiment of skinwalkers and witches among the Southwest tribes has led to little information being accessible to people outside of the Navajo culture, mostly to keep unfavorable perception of the tribes at bay due to lack of understanding and mainly from not having real life experience, which carries sizable weight in the Navajo community. Much like most Asian people of the Pacific Rim will not speak of spirits in public or choose to broach the subject in private or amongst close friends and family. Now, again, being from Hawaii and being of Hawaiian descent, as well as many other Pacific Rim cultures, we got a pot of stew going on with me here. We didn't always talk about certain things. And I can remember a point where I went to a Korean funeral and it could be perceived as scary, where the women would wail in mourning. Now, as a child, it was extremely scary for me, but I knew it was part of the culture. So as a child, I could be, misunderstanding. I knew I was misunderstanding because I was scared, and as I grew up and learned later on, this is their form of mourning, at least they weren't hitting the bottle,
Right.
And, I respect that. And I respected it at the time, but I was, inside I was scared. Like, this is scary to me. I see my aunt, my uncles, and, cousins wailing, and it scared me because you don't see that every day. And if you're not exposed to it or around it, that's going to freak you out, especially as a young child.
I mean, funerals are hard enough and confusing enough as a child. Now you add in a very intense ritual.
Yes, extremely.
And you're like, okay, I'm mentally prepared because they told me all about it. Let's go. I got this. Never mind. It's more than I even expected. I don't got this. This is freaky.
Yeah, and I was unprepared. I was told after the fact. I'm like, okay, well, I have to process this. My little young mind has to process this. And I think that kind of unknown or, ignorant mind state, unfortunately, permeates into the non-Navajo people thinking a lot of negative things. The indigenous tribes of the U.S. have kind of had a bad rap in the sense of how they were treated. Now, I completely respect their structure, their cultural and belief systems, and I think they got a good thing going. And I can see where they've come together as tribes to create the Navajo Nation. They're progressing their race, their culture, and no one's going to say no. And they want to keep it as positive as possible.
And I also guess as an outsider, because obviously I have no real culture within my body, but it's like, well, if you leave too many people alone with an imagination, think of it like telephone. Everybody telling a story, it changes a little bit. And I can respect that
they just want to hang up the phone.
Yeah, they want, if the information's out there, okay, but please be right. Because one, that comes to respect. And two, this is something that's been around for how long?
Yes.
For these cultures.
Yeah.
And it is a very, very significant thing for them. And it is for other people as well. They just might not know it yet.
Exactly. Every culture is going to have their quote-unquote boogeyman. But with indigenous people of the earth, so connected to the earth, that boogeyman is going to carry a lot more weight and have a greater purpose in general.
Be very, very intense and scary.
Exactly.
I mean, he kind of scares me, and I don't know that much about it.
Yeah, and I would say this too, if you're not of the land, I mean, I was born and raised in cities my entire life, and when I traveled to the southwest region of the U.S., I mean, it's formidable. If you're not of that area, it's formidable. You can see when weather rolls up on you, and when beautiful blue skies, puffy white clouds turn to dark, overcast, kind of a rolling wave of clouds, say as a storm comes through. That's definitely going to get to you. That's going to make you think certain things, and I'm sure coming from a tribal people, those things mean a lot. Hey, yeah, we watched the fog roll in San Francisco. Okay, that's beautiful. That's great. Take your Instagram pictures, whatever. But, with people connected to the earth like tribal cultures, it's going to carry a lot more weight with them.
Exactly. And, you talk about the visuals, but also the times that I have been in those areas. Again, back to the psychic thing. It just, you can cut, when you're walking through anything, it's like you can feel it cut like a knife through the air. It's like the energy is so heavy and thick, and not heavy in a negative way. There's just so much of it there.
Yeah, there's energy.
And it feels like you're pushing your way through a little bubble.
Yeah, almost like when we lived in Oklahoma and a tornado would start, to form, and you kind of feel that electricity in the air. The air feels heavier. It's not necessarily bad. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that also is, coming back to these areas, these spiritual areas, those ley lines, those vortexes are going to, kind of make themselves known. And within the Navajo culture, shamans and skinwalkers are aware of these areas and they know how to harness those powers. It's like they've got that kind of ball of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And now because of what they know, they can actually do something with it. And some do bad things with it and some do good things with it.
And they know so much more than we do, and they know more than there's even thought to know.
Exactly.
It's absolutely amazing how in tune and everything. It's just amazing.
Now, all these different tribes have their own versions of a skinwalker and mainly present themselves as a malevolent witch wielding dark powers and capable of transforming itself into an animal. Now, this is where non-Navajo people see the skinwalker as, oh, it's a creepy, deadish wolf or coyote or something. And then instantaneously, I can see people having their imagination run wild.
Exactly. And this is where it gets labeled as a cryptid.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see how that would be slightly offensive.
Yeah,
This isn't a creature. This is a being.
Mm-hmm.
And the power that is held within that being is so meaningful. The message that being is giving whomever it's coming to.
Right. It's beyond just a wolf or a coyote. And I'm only using those as examples because, every indigenous culture, again, their animals represent certain things. They might represent a good harvest, good animals, malevolent animals, healing animals. I hate doing this. I saw a rabbit run this way and that way, so now I know the harvest is going to be good. Mm-hmm. And I know that's a completely bad example, but that's their belief system, and that out of respect. I don't know, so I'm just going to use that as an example.
Yeah, those are basically spirit animals and guides and all of that. There's so many things.
And, to take beyond just animals, these animals carry spiritual power and meaning for tribal cultures, labeling, the next step as a cryptid, I can see that as definitely demeaning. This is somebody of great power,
yes,
within the culture, and not only did they, do their thing and became something else, they became something more.
And the knowledge of these evil powers is passed down from the elders through generations. The knowledge and rituals allow these witches to have the ability to possess or disguise themselves as a creature, as we mentioned. Now, animals associated with witchcraft usually include tricksters, such as the coyote.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that comes down to the symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
It may include other creatures, usually those associated with death or bad omens.
Right. And, with these powers that have been passed down, in a way, not only is the knowledge passed down, but the intensity or the magnitude of this lore and this knowledge grows in time. It's kind of like, watching an investment grow. It's going to grow over time. And you can definitely see the draw that this evil power has for, mortals to be drawn to it, to want that power, because it is, over the years has grown and grown and grown. And again, with great power comes great responsibility. The strongest are usually the ones that don't want the power. Okay? We might come back to that here in a minute.
That's a thought.
Right.
Now, these witches, talking about power, have the ability to take possession of the bodies of human victims if a person locks eyes with them.
Now, as they say, the eyes are a window to the soul.
Oh, yeah.
And that can mean so many different things, especially in different cultures around the world. And, that's always been the thing. You see an animal at night, we'll use that example. You see an animal at night, what's the first thing that you see?
It's eyeballs.
Exactly, glowing eyes. You know something's out there because they are looking at you. The observer becomes the observed.
Mm-hmm. And it's also, with the eyes being the window to the soul, the eyes hold so much energy. Your energies are connecting, and they're starting to invite each other's energies into each other, literally. Therefore, that leaves a little open window for them to be like, hey, I'm just going to jump in your skin for a little bit.
Right.
Hang out. Let's go do some stuff. You want some cereal?
Right.
I'm hungry. So now the Skinwalker's power also allows them to read other people's minds, controlling their thoughts and behavior, causing disease and illness to the person as well as their family and community, destroying property and even causing death. That's scary.
Yeah, that's definitely scary.
By looking into its eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't even know that those are the eyes you're looking into. It could be a wild animal and you're trying to take it in for its beauty and its energy, and then you don't even know this is happening.
Right, and also, out in these somewhat barren lands, these isolated areas, you're also watching out to see what's around you. And, you're going to look and lock eyes, whether you like it or not, on potentially something out there that's more than just an animal.
It is said that in addition to being able to shapeshift into an animal, the Skinwalker is also able to control the creatures of the night, such as, again, wolves and owls, and control these animals for malevolent purposes. Their powers extend beyond the mortal plane and are able to call up the spirits of the dead and reanimate the corpses to attack their enemies.
Wow. Now,
I'm not looking anybody in the eyes ever again.
Right?
I don't care if it's the lady at Starbucks or the bank or the police officer that just pulled me over.
Now, these skinwalkers, these witches are coming off almost like, super villains with how much they can do, what they're capable of. And I feel that stems from how long the legend or lore of the Skinwalker has been around. It's grown from, the evil shaman, evil witch, using the powers of the earth and the botanicals around them for malevolent reasons. And that has grown over time, adding to the power, not just to the legend, but also to the power of these individuals, these skinwalkers.
It's absolutely crazy. Their supernatural powers are uncanny. And as they are said to run faster than a horse, when you're talking about super heroes.
Yeah.
Run faster than a horse and have the ability to jump high cliffs. They are extremely fast, agile, impossible to catch, and leave tracks that are larger than those of any animal. And we've seen some of those tracks on stuff that we've seen about skinwalkers.
Yes.
They're massive.
Yeah, within that area, you're obviously not going to have an elephant roaming around.
But they're also not really human and not fully animal. They're like a little kind of cross between. And again, that is where it comes in that they get taken as cryptids.
Right. And also, I think with that being not quite human and not fully animal, adds it to the cryptid batch, if you will, but also crosses that veil between the natural and the supernatural, which you know much more about than I do.
Yes, and it's so complex, and honestly, I wish I could sit down with Navajo people and hopefully let them know I'm coming with all respect, but I really want to learn about this. This is an amazing story. This is an amazing legend, and it's something I think we all need to watch out for. It's not joking around, but it's there for a reason, and we need to learn why.
Exactly. You know, you take the good and bad with anyone, you know, in general, and because, you know, indigenous tribes in the U.S. have had a hard time, only recently have they been giving one the credit, the respect that they deserve, their land, you know, which they should have more of it. You know, I believe in that. And, you know, understanding that they're going to be, you know, that they'll be standoff to sharing any more than they, you know, want to or need to. They hold things, you know, close to the chest, if you will. They play it close to the chest, which is completely understandable. And again, because this legend is prevalent and has unfortunately been bastardized by non-Navajo, you know, I would say, hey, we want to know. We want to know out of respect, like you said.
We want to set the record straight and get the correct information out there. Just be another person saying, this is truly it. This is from the horse's mouth. We're going to hear the actual story. Stop spreading rumors. Stop exaggerating. I'm dramatic. I get it. We have a tendency to do this, but let's not be dramatic and let's get this straight and talk to the people that know. So obviously, if you're listening and you want to talk to us about this and tell us we were wrong.
Yes.
Because we researched as much as we could to make sure everything was as correct as possible. And if you want to talk to us about this, we would love to.
Now, it's said that Skinwalker stories told to Navajo children may be a complete life and death struggle that end in either the Skinwalker or Navajo killing each other. Now, we're going to go back to every culture that has a boogeyman, okay? Then they're going to use that boogeyman to keep the kids in check. We've all heard it. Don't go over there. Not necessarily the monster under the bed, but don't go into the forest. The forest is completely fine. Later on in life, you find out the forest is completely fine, but they want to make sure that you don't, fall out of a tree and hit your head on a rock, or, a bear rolls up on you or something like that.
Or go get yourself lost so all the adults have to stay up late, look for your butt in the woods, in the rain, in the cold, and then they have to go to work in the morning because they finally found you.
Right.
And you just got lost.
Now, these stories are also to, one, educate children, protect them, and also make them aware. You want to make sure that you're not going to stumble across the wrong guy at the wrong time in the wrong place. And that's, understandable. One, to keep the kids in check, but also two, to keep them safe. But it also does perpetuate the legend.
And also partial encounter stories that end in a stalemate. Encounter stories may be composed as Navajo victory stories, with the Skinwalkers approaching a Hogan and being scared away. Much like, say, two territorial animals meeting face to face and kind of backing away from each other in quiet resolve, like you see the videos of the mountain goats.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of put their heads down, they walk up, they're like, you want to go? You want to go? No? Okay, we're good. And then they back off.
Right. And, these stories of, a draw being chalked up as a victory is, you wouldn't think, a tie would be a victory, but if, as intense and as powerful as Skinwalkers are, if you're walking away from that with, all your fingers and toes and, alive, I call that a victory for sure.
And without another being inside of your body taking control.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, that's no harm, no foul. I survived. Woohoo! Yay me!
Right? Unfortunately, non-native interpretations of Skinwalker stories have marred the cultural aspect and origin. These stories typically tell of a partial encounter on the road where the victim or protagonist is temporarily vulnerable, but then escapes from the Skinwalker in a way not traditionally seen in Navajo lore. These false fabrications of legend have set a bleak light on the tribal people that mainly have a positive light and rituals that have persisted over hundreds of years, keeping with their spiritual and cultural beliefs.
And basically, it comes off as big and dramatic. Even when, like we just said, the stalemate is a victory. And that's not very dramatic when you first think of it.
Agreed, yeah. It's the cinematic, final fight, the fight to the death, when ultimately, these powers and the spirituality of it persist beyond that. We're talking about individuals that can pass back and forth between the veil of natural and supernatural, and it doesn't come off as the big quote-unquote blockbuster when it's just a stalemate. But ultimately that comes down to the balance of the world, the balance of the people and the land.
Balance of energy.
Exactly.
Balance of light and dark, which any culture has.
Yes. Just like they say, energy never disappears, it just transfers. Mm-hmm. And within the Navajo culture, I would feel that they have a greater and deeper understanding of this balance, living in the land that they do and working the land that they do to carve out, their life, their community, and their culture.
Yeah, working so closely with the land and the energies and each other.
Exactly.
And it's weird, but it's like, yeah, they feel the ground beneath them.
Mm-hmm.
They're grounded.
Yes. It's been said you need to go walk outside barefoot for at least 5 to 10 minutes to feel, that positive energy of the earth around you. And that's not go walk on a basketball court or walk on a sidewalk. That's walk in some dirt.
Yeah,
walk on the grass.
Reconnect.
Exactly. Spend 10 minutes outside in the sunshine so you, one, are healthy, but that's also connecting yourself to your environment.
Go hug a tree.
That too. Hopefully there's no creepy critters on it or lizards or anything.
Well, that's on you, but
right?
You need to just look before you hug.
Right.
So hopefully we've brought some light to the subject of the Skinwalker legend and also an understanding of balance.
Exactly. The good and the bad, the light and the dark. It all surrounds us and we all need to work with it. Thank you again for listening. And again, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. And also follow us on Anchor and Spotify so you don't miss out on looking within the shadows.